tonight's news. His Majesty asserts the need to protect low-income groups in light of economic hardships, urging the government to find alternative fiscal measures to serve the underprivileged. Jordan denounces a suicide attack near the offices of the Afghan parliament in the capital Kabul that killed more than 30 people and injured 80. And U.S. President Barack Obama gives his farewell address to Americans in a few hours, a speech his aides say intends to motivate people to get involved and fight for democracy. Good evening and welcome to tonight's news. His Majesty said it is of crucial importance to protect the less privileged segments of society and the middle class, especially in light of the harsh economic conditions in the kingdom that it is going through. King Abdullah was speaking in a meeting at Al Husseiniya Palace with the Senate President and Speaker of the lower house of Parliament in the presence of the two houses' permanent office members. His Majesty said he has directed the government to review fiscal reform measures and find alternative options to protect the low-income groups, noting that current regional wars and conflicts are affecting the economies of the entire region and not only Jordan. However, he said ongoing efforts aim to promote economic growth and curb unemployment among the youth, but one has to be realistic in terms of progress to be achieved this year. Such dire conditions, His Majesty went on, require teamwork and concerted efforts on the part of government, parliament, as well as national institutions to empower the country to confront challenges. No one is deeply concerned than I am over the welfare of the nation, or more aware of the economic, political, and security challenges that are facing Jordan, His Majesty told the meeting. But I am confident we shall overcome all the hardships, he affirmed. The optimal safeguards for Jordan is to work towards a civil state, to combat extremism and develop human resources, His Majesty said, referring to the 6th discussion paper in which he focused on the rule of law as a culture and as measures, decisions and actions that do not exclude anybody. Again, His Majesty cautioned against any party's attempt to spread hatred in society or to hurt the feelings of citizens irrespective of their origins. Concluding, His Majesty said there is no room for anyone in any of the country's institutions who has no respect for the country's martyrs or no appreciation of their sacrifices. Members of the Senate have donated a month's wage as contribution to the families of the Martyrs Fund, which His Majesty had ordered to be set up. During a visit to the Army headquarters on Sunday, His Majesty directed the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to set up a fund in support of the families of the military and security agencies' martyrs and pledged 5 million Jordanian dinars from the royal court budget. His Majesty made an open call to government and to the private sector to contribute to the fund. As he announced the donation, Senate President Faisal Al-Fayez said the senators' move is in keeping with His Majesty's example and reflects their sense of national responsibility. A royal decree was issued today appointing Major General Ahmed Sarhan Al-Faqih as new Director General of the Public Security Department, effective immediately. Al-Faqih replaces Major General Atif Saudi. A suicide attack near the offices of the Afghan parliament in the capital Kabul killed more than 30 people and injured 80. The attack took place during rush hour as staff were leaving the parliament complex. Minutes after the blasts, Taliban claimed responsibility, saying they were targeting members of the Afghan intelligence agency. Another explosion in the southern city of Kandahar killed at least 7 people and wounded 18 others, including the provincial governor. The UAE ambassador Jamal Al-Ka'bi and a number of diplomats who were visiting the city were injured in the attack. Jordan has denounced the terror attack and expressed solidarity with Bahrain and with the Afghan government in the fight against radicalism. A statement by the government renewed Jordan's condemnation of all forms of criminal actions by terror groups that target innocent civilians and human life. State Minister for Media Affairs and Communication, Mohammed Al-Momeni, also wished the Bahraini ambassador and the injured diplomats good health and speedy recovery. Over to Iraq. Iraqi forces are fighting their way into more districts of Mosul, but military officials say advances in the city's southeast are being slowed by Daesh groups' use of civilians for cover. Still, the Iraqi army and rapid response units fought their way into the Palestine district to the southeast of Mosul, reaching the banks of the Tigris River. Members of the rapid response unit said they were able to push Daesh terrorists completely out of the district due to better defenses against car bombs and improved coordination among the advancing troops. The western half of the city remains, however, fully under the control of Daesh, and retaking it from them is likely to be complicated by narrow alleys. And to the Syria crisis, a Russian foreign ministry statement said Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and his Turkish counterpart Mevlut Cavusoglu agreed on the need to observe a ceasefire in Syria while continuing to fight terrorist groups. Lavrov and Cavusoglu, who spoke by telephone, discussed an upcoming meeting on the Syrian situation due to take place in the Kazakh capital, Astana. To Iran, where hundreds of thousands of mourners gathered in Tehran University campus to pay their last respects to former President Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani. Rafsanjani's casket was buried at the shrine of the late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, to whom the deceased was a close advisor and confidant. Rafsanjani died on Sunday from a heart disease at the age of 82. His policies of economic liberalization and better relations with the West attracted fierce supporters and equally fierce critics during his life. Italy has sent its ambassador back to Libya. The foreign ministry said in a statement the ambassador was to present his credentials to the local government sometime today and would start work in Tripoli immediately, having received the approval of Prime Minister Fayez Siraj's government last month. Italy is the first Western diplomatic mission to reopen in the divided country since 2015. And while several countries have said they plan to reopen embassies, none have yet done so. U.S. President Barack Obama will give his farewell address to Americans in a few hours, a speech his aides say intends to motivate people to get involved and fight for democracy. Obama chose his hometown of Chicago for this big event. The majority of the speech will not reflect back on how far America has come over the last 8 years, but rather look forward. More than 14,000 people are expected at the McCormick Place. Here's a look back at Obama's legacy.
When Obama became the first African American to win the White House, his victory in 2008 was a turning point in America's tumultuous history of race relations, and it set high expectations for progress yet to come. 8 years later, Americans say the legacy of his presidency looks decidedly mixed. To some, the tone of the President-elect Donald Trump's campaign and victory, as well as a recent series of racially charged shootings, show that the United States has come no closer to overcoming its history of racial strife.
The views on race relations have become increasingly negative and are far more negative now than they've been for much of the past decade or so.
Obama devoted much of his presidency toward the enactment of gun reform laws to curb gun violence. He issued executive actions to tighten gun rules after being stymied by Congress' inaction on gun control, which ignited a political firestorm when he bypassed Congress with the measures. Obama faced an economic crisis that threatened the plunge of America into deep recession, or worse, depression. And while unemployment hit 10.3% early in 2009, today it is down to 5%. As Obama enters into his last days in office, to his administration, his greatest legacy is the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, under which 20 million people have received health care coverage. Political analysts, however, say that Donald Trump's victory is likely to have a negative impact on his legacy. On the political front, Obama leaves with a modest record of foreign policy successes garnered through the patient use of diplomacy, most notably the Iran nuclear deal, reconciliation with Cuba, and the landmark climate change accord. His most ambitious but least realized undertaking was his promise to reset relations with the Islamic world. Furthermore, his desire to disentangle the US from Iraq and avoid what he considered peripheral conflicts in Libya and Syria arguably created a vacuum that has been filled by bloodshed and pervasive disorder. In his 2009 Cairo speech, Obama won plaudits for highlighting the Palestinian plight. He also engaged in intense jousting with Israel over settlement building. But after US-led negotiations floundered in 2010, his enthusiasm evaporated. Historians may have to wait for Obama's memoirs to discern the precise reasons he disengaged from the Israeli-Palestinian conflict after initially tackling the issue with enthusiasm.
He, attempted to get to the heart of some of these issues, such as the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And he met a level of obstruction from the Israeli Prime Minister, in large part, Bibi Netanyahu, that just made it impossible.
A few hours and Barack Obama gives his final speech as president. Though he will leave without having implemented some measures, while others might be repealed, tonight will be an evening of joy, tears and pride in a job well done, despite the harsh headwinds of resistance he faced every day for 8 years. Alia Tuqan for the news at 10.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres appealed for cooperation and a commitment to conflict prevention during his first speech to the Security Council as the new UN chief. Upon becoming the 9th UN Secretary General, Guterres pledged to personally help broker peace in various conflicts and reform the 71-year-old world body to become more effective.
And action is essential to avert mass atrocities or grave abuses of human rights, and we can achieve this only through reasoned discussion based on facts and the pursuit of truth. Prevention must consistently be seen as a value in itself, and it is an essential means of reducing human suffering and enabling people to reach their full potential.
Back here at home, the King Hussein Medical Center will undergo a revamp thanks to support from the Abu Dhabi Fund for Development and a 200 million grant from the United Arab Emirates. The funding is part of the UAE's contribution to the Gulf Cooperation Council grant to the kingdom. At a joint news conference today, Minister of Planning and International Cooperation Imad Fakhouri, Director of the Royal Medical Services Major General Mu'in Habashne, and the Director General of the Abu Dhabi Fund, Mohammed Al-Swedi, announced the medical center's expansion plan. It includes the construction of a new 940-bed inpatient facility that will replace the current hospital, in addition to a new 400-bed obstetrics and gynecology hospital, among other upgrades. And border guards, in cooperation with the Anti-Narcotics Department, aborted an attempt to smuggle large quantities of drugs through the northern borders and arrested one of the suspects. A statement by the Public Security Department said border guards and anti-narcotics personnel seized 1.6 million pills and 60 kilograms of hashish that were hidden in large bags. Efforts are currently underway to arrest an Arab national who was involved in the smuggling activity. A rare sketch by Leonardo da Vinci of the martyrdom of Saint Sebastian was shown to the press for the first time. The sketch is valued at $15.84 million. French auction house Tejan displayed the drawing, which included on the reverse side notes written backwards and diagrams about light and shadow relating to Da Vinci's study of optics. Experts say the drawing was a study by Da Vinci for an unfinished painting of the martyred saint made during the early years of his life, somewhere around the year 1480. The drawing has been designated a national treasure by the French Ministry of Culture, and therefore cannot be sold to private collectors and must find an owner among French national museums. The Louvre is a likely candidate. FIFA has voted to expand the World Cup to 48 teams from its current 32. The FIFA Council has voted unanimously in favor of the change, which will be introduced at the 2026 tournament. The new format will include a first round of 16 groups of 3 teams, with further details to be given later. FIFA President Gianni Infantino had made World Cup expansion one of his promises during his successful electoral campaign. He said it doesn't add burden to players and that football is more than just Europe and South America.
32 and then 16, 8, 4 and 2. The news or the good news in this respect are that this format can be
5 times Grand Slam champion Maria Sharapova will return to competitive action following a 15-month doping ban at the Stuttgart Grand Prix in April. She will return to action in time to contest the season's 2nd Grand Slam at Roland Garros. The French Open begins on May 22nd. Cristiano Ronaldo won FIFA's rebranded Player of the Year award, beating off his old rival Lionel Messi, who was pulled out of the ceremony only a few hours earlier by his club Barcelona. The 31-year-old Ronaldo was rewarded for a year in which he won the Champions League with his club Real Madrid and then Euro 2016 with Portugal. Messi was second in the vote and Frenchman Antoine Griezmann third. Italian Claudio Ranieri won the Coach of the Year award for leading outsiders Leicester City to the English Premier League title. And finally, low temperatures continue for the rest of tonight, dropping down to 2 degrees Celsius in the late hours in Amman. Frosty conditions are most likely to affect the hilly areas, the Badia and parts of the northern Jordan Valley, also in the late hours. Tomorrow, similar conditions prevail with low-altitude clouds and northeasterly to northwesterly moderate winds. Further south, the Gulf of Aqaba should expect fair conditions during the day and a cold night with northerly moderate winds and slightly high seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. Before we end the news for tonight, here's a quick recap of our top stories. His Majesty asserts the need to protect low-income groups in light of economic hardships, urging the government to find alternative fiscal measures to serve the underprivileged. Jordan denounces a suicide attack near the offices of the Afghan parliament in the capital Kabul that killed more than 30 people and injured 80. And U.S. President Barack Obama gives his farewell address to Americans in a few hours, a speech his aides say intends to motivate people to get involved and fight for democracy. We've come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Dana Abu Sham. Thanks for watching and have a good night.